of the. I've got hair.
That's what's going on today. Kyle's new hair. It's the first episode of season 2 due to Kyle's haircut. So, hello everybody. Hello Kyle.
Hi.
Hope everything's going well.
Is this camera focused on me at all, or did it like totally move?
We are operating without a moto today, so hopefully everything will go well. We'll miss her expert advice and commentary.
And her telling me to make sure everything looks nice and clean before we turn the cameras on and everything like that. So, you know.
So how do we sound? Do we sound okay?
Are we audible? We always have audio issues. We're like trying to make Steve's headset work, but it was like picking up my microphone, which picks up everything. It was all crazy.
It was nuts.
But now we figured it out. Thankfully, because I've been using Windows PCs my entire life. I was able to figure it out.
Oh, I sound like I'm in a hallway, huh? Let's see.
Well, we're not going to mess with it.
I know, at least you can hear me. Jeez.
You're at least hallways, Steve.
Let's see, is that any better? Or? Looking good. Ah, Lepinstar said, or Lepinstar, my bad, said looking good, buddy. I think that was directed at you.
Thank you. Yeah, I've never ever had long
Still
hair.
a little quiet. Let's see.
So boost the level underneath with the level.
I think I got it. Is that any better, Mike? Hopefully.
Hopefully. So we also have a special guest who just so happened to be in town again.
Thanks to Wisp.
TJ. And I
We got
totally
TJ.
forgot
I was
my
in the
mask.
neighborhood, so I thought I'd drop by.
And I forgot my facial covering. All of us here in this room right now are vaccinated from COVID-19. We have both had our double shots, but I think it is for the best that we keep our facial coverings on. So for you lip readers, I apologize. Yeah, we don't have a moto, so we are going to jump through this, and we're going to enjoy TJ's company. TJ, why are you in the Carolinas?
I'm back for the second time in 7 weeks, and for the second time ever in my life. I enjoy making it a thing. Hopefully it's not going to be this frequent. Again, installing arcade card swipe systems at various arcades. Finished an install in Charlotte, North Carolina today, actually, and then drove down here on my way to Florida. I just made a road trip of it since there's no great flights from Charlotte to Pensacola.
Huh.
So I have a couple days, make a road trip, make it fun.
That is going to be a good one. I'm surprised there's no good flights from Charlotte to Pensacola. Like Charlotte.
They were all like 9 hours.
What? To get from North Carolina to Florida?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Well,
Like, I'll just drive because I enjoy driving.
yeah, you're going to go from Charlotte to Atlanta with a 3-hour layover. That's crazy. Yeah, that'll be a fun drive, though. So what's the route? I mean, are you taking...
I don't have one yet.
Okay.
I'm just playing it by ear.
Even better.
And I'm toying with the idea of just drive to California after I'm done. It's only 3.5 days.
Right? I mean, I've done it. It's fun.
It's a day of flying as it is.
Yeah, it is. We drove to California, or we drove from California to here in 4 days. I think it was day one. Well, we started in LA, though, with my wife's mom's house. So we were in LA. We did LA to Albuquerque, Albuquerque to Fort Smith, Arkansas, and Fort Smith, Arkansas to Atlanta, and then a brisk 3-hour drive from Atlanta to Columbia. I would recommend doing that. That might be kind of fun.
I've done the drive once before. We'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens.
I still have another week to go before I'm done with actual work, and then we'll figure it out from there.
Well, we are happy to have you here.
Happy to be back.
We had a funny skit of maybe pretending like we weren't going to know TJ was going to show up, and we was going to knock on the door and be like, but I'm too scatterbrained, and we were having trouble getting the stream started. So hey, here we are.
So you got a couple things in the chat. Mike Moretti says best shirt ever.
Yes.
Seriously.
Yeah, nice.
If you're visiting
Move a little.
the San Francisco Bay Area, the Flipper Room is how do we describe it? A well-maintained collector quality machines that you would expect to find in someone's house quality of games on coin play. in a great atmosphere.
Awesome environment with awesome people. Everyone at the Flip Room's great, whether they are patrons or the owners themselves. Yeah, no, it's fun. Mike has a great collection of games, and everyone he has putting games in there are just great. I mean, where else are you going to get to play? I mean, he's got the new he's got almost every single spooky game in there, but then right next to it's going to be like a gorgeous TX sector, and then TJ's Class of 1812 right next to it, right? It's there's
that's very eclectic.
Yes, it's fun. That's the
I
fun
played Black
kind of
Belt
arcade.
and Escape from the Lost World recently,
beautiful.
and it's like those are fun, and they're alongside some newer Stearns, Turtles and Deadpool, Avengers.
I always tell people it's like it's everything that you want to play and everything you didn't know that you needed to play, all in the same spot. It's definitely in my top 5 arcades in the world. That's definitely one of them. I'm not just saying that to get on your good side, Mike. It's awesome.
The other side of their business is art framing. So if you have art that you need framed, they do a great job with that too.
Getting a lot of comments about your haircut. Mr. Loaf says, "Wowee, look at that haircut."
Yep. I moved to South Carolina and I left the barber that was cutting my hair for 10 years. I went to the same dude for like almost a decade. And I was too scared to go find a new barber, and B, there was a pandemic, so I just said F it and decided to not get my hair cut.
See, I think that's as high as my mic will go, but thanks, Mr. Loaf.
I like having short hair. That's how I normally have my hair. My previous life of doing everything on motorcycles and not owning a car.
You and Daniel are twins. You are brothers from another mother.
Why?
Because he just got a haircut as well. He got his haircut today.
Dang, I got my hair cut on Tuesday.
On Tuesday. So, I mean, you're looking at 2 days apart.
Our birthdays on the
Your
same day.
Your birthday's on the same day.
We both like German cars.
I mean, that kind of kismet, you just can't make up.
Can't get anywhere else. Goodness gracious. So, yeah, a drastic change, but this is how my hair will probably be like for the rest of my life.
And 808's like me, you know, we cut our own hair. So
We're both staring at Steve right now. You can't see him, but
he's like, huh? Anywho, so yeah, we were going to do all sorts of work on Indy500, and I had a couple developments today. Well, through this week. I got my second COVID shot, and it knocked me on my butt, and my body is very sore. So I don't particularly want to be bending in and over a pinball machine. I also was talking to one of our excellent vendors, who may or may not be watching, Jody at Ramp-O-Matic, who informed me that his replacement reproduction set of Indy500 ramps will be done soon. And I am going to prototype some in this game.
So you don't have to clean these?
I don't have to clean these, no. I still might clean them just to see how good they look, and maybe we can sell them as spares, but we will have new Indy500 ramps, and I do look forward to installing...
Oh, Ramp-O-Matic's in the chat.
Ah, hello. Hello,
Cool.
Ramp-O-Matic.
There's also some space on the wall over there. You can just hang them up.
I like hanging ramps. You never know when they're going to come in handy. But yeah, we'll do that. But this game does have a lot more to go before we can put ramps in it. But anyways.
Welcome back, our hoodie.
Thanks, everyone, for showing up to this silly show.
Yeah, and you and Daniel both drive German cars. What's up?
He just lives so much further away. We will. I will have to do a Europe trip sometime. I cannot wait to get back to the Adriatic Sea and visit the Balkans for the first time in my entire life.
That would be very exciting.
That would be very
Beautiful
exciting.
place.
I can't wait to go see all of it. I'd really like to go to Moldova. I really want to go get some like crazy Moldovan cognac or something like that, but I'm sure I could get some.
You're going to travel that far for some booze, huh?
Yes,
Who
sir.
am I talking to?
You know who you're talking to. This kind of guy would do something crazy like that. Anywho, when it comes to pinball, though, we did decide that TJ did have some interesting things, like to navigate through some of the options and like how the WPC menu system works, and not how it works really, but like just things like fine tuning. Is that a way to put it? Okay.
Things that after you replace your batteries with NVRAM that revert to factory settings that you might want to change to make the game more enjoyable for your house or set it on free play. There's a bunch of different options that you can change to make it more your liking.
Real quick before we get into that,
Yeah.
Double flip with 2 P's, because I guess it's double flip it. Wants to know what flame polishing a ramp is.
Flame polishing a ramp is using a flame to work out impurities in the plastic.
And hopefully not turn it into a mess of goo.
Yeah, I've done it a few times. I don't like doing it. I would rather replace a dirty, nasty ramp with
I imagine it's pretty nerve-wracking because you have to have just that right touch, right?
Yeah, well, there's a very thin line between like, oh, this is great, and man, I just screwed this up.
Yeah,
so
now I've got a hole in my ramp.
Yeah, so the stakes are high. What the end result is can look very nice, but yeah, I don't know if we'll ever do a tutorial on that, but it is a interesting process, that's for sure.
Going with replacing ramps, recently on a Star Trek Next Gen, we ordered a ramp from Marco, and it showed up with stickers and the flap already attached to it. And I was like, wow, this is great. Well, the stickers weren't attached to it, they were with it.
In a baggie.
But I was worried about just having a clear ramp and needing to then order the stickers separately. But that was a nice touch.
Most of the time, especially like working closely with Rampomatic, we're working, actually here, chat's opinion, because you guys actually, you are a mix of seasoned professionals and people very curious. If you were to buy a new ramp for your pinball machine, how put together would you want it? I mean, of course, it's great to have something like totally plug and play, but is that a deciding factor for you if it were to come to replace your ramp? Certain ramps do have things that make the, this one doesn't. Williams got smart.
I would vote for anything that is riveted to the ramp to be attached to it, because that's not something
that's basically what the chat's saying right now.
That's what we kind of came up with.
And,
well,
yeah.
Let's talk about this too. There are things that need to be riveted and things that don't need to be riveted. Riveting was done from the factory. Is this in view?
Down a little. Yep.
Riveting was done at the factory because it's cheap and it's fast, right? So there's 2 reasons a rivet would need to be used. Cost and space. You need a rivet on the ball flap because of ball striking, right? You have a space constraint here. On older games, a lot of times your lamp or flash lamp bracket or assembly would have been riveted to the ramp, and a lot of times your switches also would be riveted to the ramp. This game is newer, and they realized that it was not, you didn't need to split pennies in half to make a ton of money, and let's just screw hardware on. A lot of times you can use regular hardware when replacing a lot of this stuff. So in this case, we've got 2 flash domes on this ramp. These don't need to be riveted on. You could replace these with a number 6, number 5 screw, and it would be
balls rolling over there, nothing like that.
It would be totally fine. So from the factory, this is riveted, and it needs to be riveted, or it needed to be riveted just for convenience and cost. Now at home, it doesn't need to be that way, right? So I guess I'm glad that everyone else kind of thinks the same way, because talking to Mr. Rampomatic, we kind of agreed on the same thing. It's like if it needs to be attached one way, rivet it. If not, we can either provide screws or let someone else figure that out. Look at this, though, too, actually. It's kind of neat. A unique ramp. This ramp is so massive.
Down a little?
It needs to be joined in the center. It is broken.
Down. There you go. Perfect.
But this plate here, which kind of joins the ramps together, it doesn't really join the ramps together, but this has to be riveted in, right?
It's also where the ball hits when it gets fired onto the ramp.
Drop down from the turbo or the ball popper in the back?
I think the ball popper in the back.
So it's a reinforcement, but it's also there to, well, it's mostly a reinforcement, but it also helps the hardware, which kind of conjoins the ramp. I guess this switch here is to tell if the shot, no, I guess that's the made switch, huh? This one says, I came in. This one says, you've made it around. If the ball comes in from the popper here, it's just going to fly down this way. Anywho, this needs to be riveted. You can't put screws here. These could totally have screws. So I guess it seems like that's what the consensus is.
Indy500 says, depends on the ramp for me, but yeah, I hate rivets. I also hate trying to line up stickers. I'm fine to do both if there's a significant cost difference between assembled and not.
I think since stickers are such a personal preference, we both kind of agreed that the stickers need to be done by the person putting the ramp in their pinball machine. Since people do hate lining up stickers, and I think the place for people to maybe complain that they aren't in the perfect spot or something like that is high, that's your job. But when it comes to assembling the ramp,
so if you were to use a screw to put those the lamp covers back, would you need a nut on the backside, or does the screw bite into the plastic?
If you're using a sheet metal screw, a pointy screw, sheet metal or wood screw, most of the time, if it's a new hole, then you would have it go into the plastic and it would stay.
Yeah. I think it's better.
Ramp-O-Matic's fee per sticker installation is $100,000.
There we go. So if you want it done, we can make it happen. You just have to send a check to Coil and Ramp-O-Matic. I think, yeah, what TJ said's right. With the sheet metal screw, that totally does the job. But for most of the time, when you're doing those flash lamps, you're going to put those things on before. Well, I guess it depends. Sometimes it's a pain. If you do have to replace those bulbs, there are instances where that could be problematic. But it's a game-by-game basis. Some of the later games use like a twist-off dome. Some domes you have to screw in.
If you're going to use machine screws with nuts, I would use the nylon lock nuts because there's a lot of vibration and regular nuts will just fall off. And then your flasher dome or
do you
switch.
Put a washer in there as well, or
sometimes, if it needs it.
on top?
Well, if it looks like the screw head is going to poke through, then you could put a washer on.
Gotcha.
In
But
general,
not
I
for
don't.
stability if you're using the nylon.
If I was,
I would just use what was originally there. Is a good starting point.
But if we're replacing a rivet, I think if you're screwing into like a flasher dome, like that, there's a flange, right, with the hole in it, that's enough of a washer. You know what I mean? I think that's, yeah, I don't know. That seems fair. Huh. Yeah, I guess it depends on your personal taste, I suppose.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, the elastic lock nut is a necessity. Elastic lock nut should be used in almost every instance on a pinball game.
Hey, Nolan. Yeah, it's a Midge episode.
The best episodes.
Whatever. Emoto's so much better at this than I am.
But they're fun in different ways.
It's true.
You know, the opposite, or the other thing, you could also use a washer head screw. A little bit of a fatter footprint. Anywho.
Got room for it? Yeah, why not?
I don't know. I think that seems pretty fair when it comes to ramps. I think there are instances where you do need like super special equipment. I had specialized ramp or riveting equipment, and like when I put a new ramp into TJ's Swords of Fury, there are a few things on that ramp that you can't use, like C-clamp or like rivet squeezy pliers to get that far, that deep into the ramp. I had to use the old-fashioned way of a hammer and a peen and really rivet it down by hand. So,
wow, that's got to be nerve-wracking on a plastic ramp.
It's always exciting.
On a game that doesn't belong to you.
Exactly.
I only
Well, if it's TJ's game, it's fine.
I've seen it since you did the work to it, but I don't think I've played it. I think you moved away too quickly.
I think it was in really good shape once I was done with it, and now I think Ben is taking good care of it, but
I hope he is.
who knows how it's playing. He's so neurotic about keeping games nice. He's probably keeping it way nicer than I ever did. I did take all the pepperoni out from under the lock bar, though. That was fun. The joys of location games.
Somebody was stashing their pepperonis there, man.
Well, you need a place to put your pizza while you're playing, so just flap it on the glass and...
Some backstory, I had a Swords of Fury, Kyle wanted one. I didn't want to sell it, but you can go ahead and borrow it. And then he moved away and loaned it to a friend with my permission, and I still haven't seen it recently.
So instead of having to move it, it just had to be moved by someone else. Go see Ben. He'll probably enjoy having you stop by sometime.
Thanks for the subscribe, Obi Drunk Kenobi.
But loaning games to friends, if you trust them 100%, instead of selling them a game, means that you don't have to come up with a price, which can be weird with friendships. You get the game back when they're done with it.
Yep.
So you don't have to really say goodbye to your games. And it's free storage for a few months, years.
Yeah, almost indefinite. And the other nice thing too, right, is especially a lot of these games, people want them and then they get bored of them really quick, because a lot of those old games, Yeah,
And
super
I mean,
deep.
and we all have really short attention spans now too.
Yeah. So you take a game home, you enjoy it for 3 months, and then you be like, hey, thanks for letting me borrow it. Now let's trade, right? Pin swapping. It's a great thing to do.
And hopefully you give it back to them in better condition than you got it.
Yes, like with a new ramp.
Yeah.
We are doing great, Obi. Real quick, our free shipping 99 code for today is PT-Jellybean in honor of last week's uber long jelly bean conversation in which we decided that Jelly Belly popcorn is the best flavor.
By one camp. TJ, what is your favorite Jelly Belly?
I'm not actually a fan of jelly beans.
Okay, fair
I'll do
enough.
candy corn though, which is a completely different thing, but Jelly
It's
Belly
kinda the
actually
same.
makes candy
small
corn.
bite-sized candies.
Yeah. Okay, I'm fair with that. See, I very much dislike candy corn. I don't know what it is about candy
corn's awesome, man.
Maybe you're eating too much of it at once. Which I
Maybe.
guess if that's 3, then that might be too much for you.
I think 3 of them might be my yearly allotment.
But Mr.
Everyone
Wolf
has a
doesn't like
different-
jelly beans or candy corn. They're both gross.
Everyone has a different too much threshold.
For everything.
Yes.
Pinball, pizza, and there might not be such thing as too much pizza. Anywho, let's do a little bit of instructive things.
Yeah,
so we
no,
can...
there's some great comments in here, but let's
Whoa,
keep
wait,
going.
wait, hold on.
Let's
Great
keep going.
comments.
Yeah. Pretty sure candy corn isn't actually meant to be eaten. Oh, great flavored wax. Everybody, what? Our hoodie buttered popcorn is the worst.
I mean,
So
802
different brands of candy
popcorn all
corn
the way.
are better than others. They're all still waxy, I guess, but
Daniel's back on the Haribo train.
yeah, the Haribo stuff is so good, though.
is this okay? It fell down.
Yeah, it's fine. That gaff tape needs reapplying.
It's hanging on by here. I'll see if I can fix it.
And D-Wisp is agreeing with our hoodie about buttered popcorn being the worst Jelly Belly flavor. I think it's so divisive.
Because
it might
it's
be the most
savory.
divisive issue of our time.
It's savory, right? Like when I eat candy, I don't expect something savory, and I think that's acceptable. I think that's an acceptable argument.
Ragnarok, no, candy corn is basically corn syrup becomes candy corn, but they're little triangular bits of joy.
I think it's the texture. I don't like how grainy, like clumpy it is. I think that might be the one thing. And it doesn't, to me, it just kind of tastes like weird corn sugar. You're right. I don't know.
Candy corn on the cob. No, that doesn't exist. Probably for good reason.
Maybe. Maybe. Right.
That's a great idea. I can see that.
Huh.
Okay, let's
All right, let's move on.
talk about some stuff other than candy.
But candy is fun
I
to
do
talk
love
about.
talking about candy.
I do love candy.
This show is not called Candy Tech.
I think I'm going to change career paths. Okay, do we have green cam centered okay? Do you want to switch to green cam in the main view? Steve? Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry, I was still dreaming about candy, man.
Oh, my goodness. I'm going to let TJ just take the reins. I'm going to grab a ramp and I'm going to start polishing things.
So there's I guess we'll just dive into the adjustments menu.
I think everyone here is pretty familiar with.
So do we want the DMD on cam or?
Yes,
Yeah.
if you want to put green cam on the main screen,
You
center
got it.
view.
There we go.
I've turned off the sounds because they're annoying. So you get to deal with no sounds. Standard adjustments is a set of adjustments that are the same for all the games in WPC. Games a year or two into it, so after Right Up Pinbot and Funhouse had some things added, but they're going to be the same position on all the games. So if you have a standard set that you'd like to install, you can do that. Feature adjustments are game specific. So everything game specific to Indy500, number of shots to complete a goal, the ball savers are usually in here, but things that are specific to the rules of the game. Pricing adjustments, you can come in here. Number 17 is free play. Pricing is always the same game to game if your country code is set correctly with the dip switches or jumpers. So we'll set this on free play. Go back out. High score adjustment. There is an adjustment here for high score reset every 3,000 games. If you have it in your home and you don't ever want the high scores to reset, you would change this to off. What it's going to do is it's going to reset everything except for the Grand Champion every 3,000 games or 500 games or whatever you have it set at. It's disappointing if you have a good high score or you're going after somebody's high score and they reset. But on location, it's actually a good thing to, I guess, promote more play. If somebody's astronomical high scores have been up there for too long, they reset and give people a fresh chance. Printer adjustments, I've never seen them used. I've never seen the printer kit for WPC.
I was going to ask you if you've ever seen the printer.
I would buy one if I found it, although I shouldn't really say that because somebody will find me one and I don't need it. But everything in this menu can be ignored.
Well, what is the printer? I mean, the printer printed.
Why would you use it? Just
So
just to print
the
out
printer
your
is to
audits, or-
print out the audits.
Okay.
Used for test games. When Williams Valley had games on field tests, they could go print out the audits instead of having to write them down.
And I guess like if you were a big-time operator or something, you would have a printer and move it from game to game just to quickly print out the audits instead of marking them down in a notebook, or
Right.
Yeah.
But most operators don't even look at the audits.
Yeah, you just take the money and run.
Yeah.
Don't clean the game.
Well, I guess most operators beyond the first 2 or 3 years.
Yes.
We'll do that.
Yeah, at first you're super concerned, like having a first kid, right?
If you're
So-
still enjoying the audits, you're new to operating or a little bit crazy in a good way.
Thank you so much for the subscribe, Molly. 7 months. Wow.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Hey, thanks.
So let's go through the standard adjustments a little bit more. Balls per game. If you change this to 5 balls, it will automatically change some of the game-specific options on a lot of the games. So instead of 3 hits to destroy the castle on Medieval, it will now make it 5 hits, just so you don't plow through the game. A lot of people think that they make their game easier by setting it on 5 balls, but it's really just more of a grind to play through it. I personally like 3-ball games. You can make it as high as 10, which is a really boring game. But I guess if you're trying to get to the main goal with the glass on, you're still kind of cheating. I don't know. Tilt warnings is 3, and that's a danger, and then tilt. You can change that. Maximum extra ball count is exactly what it is. That's a per game, per player adjustment. Maximum extra ball per ball in play is exactly what that is. So you can't stack all 4 of your extra balls together on 1 ball, which is kind of rude to do in a multiplayer game. Replay system, auto percentaging, so the game will adjust its replay over time to a 10% replay award. You can change that down or up if you like getting replays. If you have your game set on extra balls, it's good to change this to fixed. That way your extra ball threshold doesn't adjust.
Huh. I actually didn't know that one.
So you couldn't put a new DMD in for this.
I forgot that it was bad.
It was shoved off in a corner since my last visit here.
I haven't touched it for a long time.
Although I think it got new flippers put on it since I was last year, and new rubber.
Check and see if they're actually crimped in, though. Oh, they kind of are. Okay. Speaking of auto percentaging, do you know the story behind auto percentaging and the lawsuits, etc.?
I never paid attention to that.
Okay.
What? I've
So-
never heard this either.
Okay, so High Speed was the first System 11 game. High Speed was also, or in System 11, that is when Williams in their firmware or the hardware of the, or not hardware, sorry, like the operating system of the pinball game, they crafted an auto percentaging to make it so replays could be dynamically adjusted, which was a big deal because when a replay is dynamically adjusted, it would allow for more money to be made, right? If you're continuously, if this location gets pried on by good players, you're going to constantly giving up free games. So it's a big deal, super cool. But in typical Williams fashion, they trademarked everything that they did. And that was, I guess, a big deal too, software trademark and restrictions in the 80s. Anywho, so fast forward a couple years, and Gottlieb puts out a game called Lights, Camera, Action. Lights, Camera, Action is a very standard Gottlieb late 80s or game. It's neat, whatever. But
it's a cool game.
Lights, Camera, Action had a ramp that would change. It had a motor that would flip the ramp, a section of the ramp to make it do different things. And
it would become a ramp to the upper playfield or a U-turn to a saucer, I think.
Okay, that's exactly what we needed. Now
the ramp actually is enabled, the rotating piece, the motor is running the entire time the flippers are enabled, and there's a release pin. So there's a clutch, and it just releases the pin in typical Gottlieb weirdness.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
A good way to continue selling more motors. Anyways, they made this game, and nothing ever happened of it until The Machine, Bride of Pinbots released. And Gottlieb thought that they had good grounds for a lawsuit because of a section of the playfield that changed and made the ball do different things, was a blatant copy of what they did on Lights, Camera, Action. So Gottlieb took Williams to court, and I don't remember if they won or if it was settled, but the repayment was Gottlieb got to use Williams' auto percentaging software, and they coded that into their games going forward.
Crazy.
I mean, it was years after. I mean, that's like, Lights, Camera, Action was 87?
89?
89. Bride of Pinbot was 91,
90.
92?
90, I think.
So it was a couple of years, but they got it, right? By that point, Bally and Williams were combined, so it was Gottlieb and Williams duking it out. Not really duking it out, but still, they got the ability to use that bit of software. So I don't know. That was probably the boringest story ever, but
it was interesting.
I thought that was funny.
So back to this, if you are awarding extra balls, which is common in home, I don't know if some states still have add-a-ball laws. You would want that fixed out of fairness, so you would set this at fixed, and then have your replay level be something obtainable that never moves. So in this case, I guess 500 million is decent for an extra ball, but the idea being that it's not going to change from game to game, which can also make the high scores harder to achieve if the extra ball is now 100 million more than it was a week ago. You can have multiple replay levels. Replay boost can be auto, which is a small amount. One of the things that you can do if you have a mixture of casual and good players on location is set this at the maximum. So we achieve maximum just by going backwards. What this does is it boosts the replay with the good players that are getting the replay to the point that it will bump out of their reach quicker, and therefore fewer replays are given, and the starting replay actually comes down so that more of the novice players can have a chance at getting it.
Interesting.
Batted to hell with like a better explanation of what replay levels are.
So replay levels, let's go back and set this to auto. I'm not sure that it makes a difference, but replay levels 4. And actually, I guess we should have left that at fixed, because now we can actually set the 4 different replay levels. So you can have an extra ball at 500 million, an extra ball at 1 billion, and 1 billion 2. So similar to how the older Bally games would have 2 or 3 replay thresholds on the score instruction card, you could do the same thing with this and actually have them to where you could print them on the card.
Said, oh, thank you for the explanation, teacher.
The other thing that this is interesting, if you use the multiple replay levels, sorry for kicking the camera, replay award, you can have it be credit, ticket, extra ball, or audit. And if you're running it as ticket, you can put a ticket dispenser on it. It will fire the knocker coil, and you can hook that up, not with 50 volts, but you can hook up the signal part of it to a single pulse ticket dispenser, I think Pinball Hall of Fame had some game a long time ago that would give out tokens in place of a replay,
Huh.
other than Safecracker.
So you have to use the knocker drive to do that.
Yes.
That's pretty neat. I never knew that. I've never seen one set up for ticket play.
Special award, your options are ticket, extra ball, points, and credit. If you set it to points, which is common in extreme tournament settings, you would get 50 million points for your special, for your playfield special, instead of an extra ball or a credit. So you get something instead of absolutely nothing of value.
And a playfield special, though, is different than a replay special, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So you can set the playfield special, you can set the replay award, and you can also do the match award, so that it gives a ticket.
Yes, Mr. Rainwater. TJ is here to teach Kyle.
Oh,
That's right.
everything.
I'm here to share knowledge with everyone.
Mainly Kyle.
Mainly
No,
me.
just kidding.
I'm also here to keep Kyle company.
Yeah, because Steve is... No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no kidding, because I am not good company.
There's an adjustment to enable a ticket award, which again fires a knocker, which is hooked up to a ticket dispenser when you get an extra ball.
So 808 Zoo wants to know, speaking of knockers, he says his theater of magic scares the bejesus out of him when it fires. Can he just unplug it? Would that be a problem?
Yes, you can unplug it. I'm not going to open this right this minute, but in the top left corner of the back box, or down on the bottom of the game on Adam's Family, is the knocker. There's a 3-pin connector on it. You just unplug that.
Or you could dampen it using foam like Adam's Family did.
Yeah, or a felt furniture pad might work. I
You
typically
don't run the risk of getting any of that into the back box after repeated hits? Or?
no,
Okay.
it's fine. Usually when I bring games home, I disconnect the knocker on them.
Really?
Maximum tickets per player. If you're running tickets, that's the only time that's ever used. I'm going to kick the camera a few more times. Match feature is the end of game match. You can turn that off. Beyond off is 50%. I don't recommend 50% if you're operating the game. 7% is the factory, and that seems to be about right. Custom message lets you put up a scrolling message that scrolls through during game over mode. So you can say, "Welcome to Joe's Pizza." You get 3 screens worth of 16 letters and 2 rows, I believe.
And you will do it wrong like 10 times to get it like the way you want it until you find
and then
it
when
out.
you're done, you're like, was that really worth it?
Yep, and then you'll never, ever, ever do it again.
A note on the custom messages is that some games have it in the game font and some games have it in the system font. And the system font is annoying because it just scrolls across in this kind of lettering that you're seeing in the menu. And if you have it in the game font, it at least looks nice and polished instead of out of place.
Welcome back, Evil Bong. Good to see you.
Language, you have a few options. Different games will have an additional option if they were sending more of them to that country. Clock style, AM,
Do you
PM.
generally need different ROMs to get those options, or?
No, I don't
No?
think so.
Okay.
Clock style, AM, PM, or 24-hour. This is only if you're displaying the clock in attract mode or if you're using the clock in the audits feature. Date style, you can swap that. Show time and date. So if you change this to yes, then it will show the time and date in the game over mode. Does not adjust for daylight savings time. It's an indicator when your batteries are starting to die.
When it's always January 1st, 1989.
No, it's if you turn it on and now your clock is slow by a month. It's an indicator that your batteries are slowly dying. If you turn it on and it's always January 1st, you probably have NV.
Very dead. Oh,
Mr.
yes.
Mr. Love, real quick, says right before he sells his games, he always changes the custom message to "Bingus is real. Protect yourself." And some other more colorful but inoffensive messages.
To make people think their game is haunted.
Here's an adjustment that you want to change if you have converted your game to LEDs on the feature lamps and GI. What this does is turns off the dimming, which we'll get to in a moment, and makes it so that you don't get weird flickery effects from your LED kit that you put in. Tournament play takes out some of the randomization of mystery awards, so everyone will get a bonus multiplier on the first one and 10 million on the second one, and so on. The awards vary by game. European score format, depending on how your dip switches on the CPU are set, or the jumpers, this will be set to yes or no as a factory setting, dependent on how you're set up.
That changes all the periods to commas?
It does. That is exactly what it does. So if you have a game that's been re-imported from Germany, it will likely have that setting to yes, and you just change it to no. You can also turn all your dip switches off and get USA that way.
But the early games used resistors, or jumpers,
Jumpers,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
In which case you can just clip them all.
Yeah. If a game was re-imported right, somebody would have clipped or removed all of the jumpers, but most of them weren't.
Right. Minimum volume override. Normally the minimum volume that you can go to is 8 when you're adjusting the volume on WPC games from Funhouse, Harley-Davidson, Brighta Pinbot, all the way up through the end. So you can set that to yes and get your volume to go below 8. GI power saver is normally at 15 minutes. If you've converted to LEDs, you want to actually turn that off.
Why is that?
So at 15 minutes of the game sitting idle with no button presses, no gameplay, it's going to dim the GI, which, depending on your LEDs that you're using,
Would turn them off entirely? Or?
No, it gives really bad flicker.
Oh, okay.
And
Demonstrate.
we'll demonstrate that. We'll let this sit here for a couple minutes in game over mode, and then it will start flickering. Because we have it set to power level 6, it's usually 5, I believe. Another trick is if you don't know what the factory setting is for something, you can hit the start button. It'll bring up a help screen and tell you that the factory setting is actually 5. WPC has
I didn't know that.
hidden start help screens in a lot of their menus. Ticket expansion board. If you're running tickets, you would add this in. I have never seen this board, but I'm sure it exists. No bonus flips is, do you get to play with flippers while it's counting up your bonus at the end of the ball? On a street location, this cuts down on wear and tear a little bit while people are waiting for the next ball to start if they're banging on the buttons.
Angrily slapping at the buttons while they're ball drained.
Game restart is typically set to slow, and that means that after ball 1, you can press and hold the start button for 3 seconds. It will start a new game. You can set that to instant or never, which are exactly what they say they are. And we're back to balls per game. Feature adjustments, you can go through, you can turn off the extra ball. So we made it half a credit. Let's turn it off, which is good for selfie leagues if they ever come back. Promotes fairness.
Here's a question. I mean, I always turn that off on every game that I have on location. The one that I have now, Twilight Zone. Do you do that?
I typically do, just because I feel like people don't understand that they're spending an entire credit worth, which now could be up to $1, to continue their game for 1 ball.
Yeah.
Should be $1, in my opinion. But
To get an extra ball?
no, to get a credit.
Oh, yeah.
Right,
Pinball
but some
should
of the
definitely-
older WPC games may not all be at $1
Right.
if they're competing with the new games. Track sounds on or off is typically noises when you hit the flipper buttons, although could sometimes be just random noises on its own.
It's amazing.
There's the flipper sounds button, or flipper button sounds adjustment. Times plunger, you can set this to 90 seconds or somewhere in between, which is good for places that get a lot of 4-player games started and walk away, or where people will come up and play a game, they'll play 1 ball of it and walk away thinking that's all they get.
Right. Yeah, you see that a million times at pinball shows. Just
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's one of the arcades that I worked in, a lot of people would get the unlimited play card and play one ball of pinball and then go play something else. So I set this to the maximum just to give people enough time to come back to their game. But what this will do is it'll auto plunge the ball and play out ball 2 and then play out ball 3 90 seconds after, and eventually end the game and go back to game over mode. Flipper plunger allows you to launch the ball with flipper buttons. Ball save time, you can make this, I believe, 15 seconds. There we go. 6. I usually go with about 10 seconds.
No, like 2 minutes on there, because that's what I need.
And number of ball saves is per ball. So you can set that to 2. So if you drain the ball quickly and you drain your saved ball quickly, you get another chance.
It's definitely good for a very casual location.
Yes. There's some multi-ball savers. Extra ball percentage. I'm not sure why that's not in standard adjustments, but it varies. Number of ramps for extra ball to start. This is something that when you change to 5 balls, it would automatically change this to hard.
Now, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the Stern games will do that differently. If you set a Stern game to be 10 balls per game, it could be still set for a 3-ball rule set.
I believe that's correct.
I think this change a Stern game, if you were to ever, for whatever heretical reason, you'd want to make it 5 balls, you would have to go into installs and install 5-ball mode, and that will make the game.
Just because I suck at pinball doesn't make me a heretic.
just 3 balls helps you get better.
So there's some other adjustments in here for game-specific things.
So yeah, you generally have about, what, 20 or so things that are kind of similar, but then after that, you're getting to your game-specific stuff.
Right, unless you're on a Keith Elwin game, and then it's up above 200.
Yeah. 200 micro adjustments.
Yeah.
It's insane.
It is insane. And then player tournament is something that if you have credits on the game, in game over mode, you hold both flipper buttons. It will allow you to start a tournament mode game without having to have access to the game inside. So we're already on free play. I'm going to hold both flipper buttons, and it should bring up a menu. There we go. Tournament mode ready. Press start now. So you'd press start, and it would remove the randomization from the mystery awards.
That is a secret.
So we're going to let this sit for a couple minutes so it goes into its power save mode, and it's had the adjustment tweaked for maximum flicker, but it also demonstrates just how bad it can be.
Yeah, we made it a little obnoxious, but it's going to be good. Okay, a couple things I want to have.
We're not going to make you sit here for 2 minutes doing
TJ,
nothing.
TJ isn't working at Marco. He helps us out quite a bit. He's a really good friend of Marco Specialties, Marco Pinball.
I hang out at the shows on the West Coast and hang out with the Marco family.
I got to meet TJ. Was it Portland? Was the first time I met you, or
Maybe.
Is that
Yeah.
the first time you actually?
I think that was the first time I met TJ. Was when we were at Portland Retro, and he helped us out so much at that show. You should have seen this guy. He lugged all of our stuff down this giant hill on a dolly.
So part of that was because I wasn't at California Extreme, where I am running around fixing things
all day.
and finishing setting up. I'm one of the organizers of California Extreme, which is a massive undertaking to put on every year, as any show is. But it means that I don't have the time at the show to hang out and talk with everyone as much as I would want to. So going to Northwest or the Tacoma show, I'm sorry, those are the same, Northwest or Portland,
Sure.
where I get to actually hang out with you, and kind of bored because I don't know anyone else there. I didn't bring games. I'll help you guys set up.
Nice. Out of boredom.
It's
That's
always
great.
fun. And then we feed you. Everyone
Yes.
gets fed. I was going to say something about
Cheese.
extra
Just
ball
kidding.
buy-in. Cheese, I could talk about cheese. We'll do that at the end. When did Williams stop doing that? It was very soon after this game. The last couple of games I can think of are Theater of Magic and Indy 500. That
Johnny Mnemonic.
I think the idea is that people were buying their way to the end of the game, so no one would want to play the game anymore. You'd be able to sit there and keep feeding the game 50 cents over and over again until you could get to that wizard mode, and you're like, okay, I've seen it all.
Well, that was like every Williams video game at the arcade, right? I mean, there was always an option to continue, and that's just what you did.
And it's
You
with
brought a sock
pinball.
full of quarters and you beat an arc, right?
Yes, I think with pinball it worked out exceedingly well in the very beginning, but then operators noticed that games on location would stop earning sooner than their older counterparts may have because people were buying their way to the end. And that is something in the audits, I think, extra ball buy-ins or something like that. And if you had an overwhelming amount of people paying their way to the end of the game, it would make you more money in the short term, but in the long term, your investment would not be earning nearly as much. Let's go back to the...
Well, I just screwed this up going in to look for extra ball buy-ins.
So now we gotta wait another 2 minutes.
That's okay, we can keep talking.
There we go. Buy-in extra ball percentage, if you want to switch back.
I think,
for a
yeah,
moment.
I mean, I always just turn it off. And it's always annoying when I'm playing Twilight Zone at home and I finish the game and it's all like, do you want to finish the play again? And it gives you that do-do-do-do-do music. And you're like, nah, go away. Leave me alone. I want it to end. Tacoma. Yeah, the Tacoma show. So,
Okay, we'll let that sit for a couple more minutes.
LEDs are horrendous.
these
Can you
LEDs,
get that on this camera?
I mean, it looks pretty washed out, but I mean, in real life, it looks horrible.
yeah, in real life it looks horrible. On the camera, it also looks horrible. I think we can
It's
change...
a different flavor of horrible.
I can change the saturation or the white balance, I think, on one of the handheld cams so we can show a more realistic version of
Okay.
it. Here, let's
Sounds
do that really quick, actually. I can help Steve.
Thank you.
So here, put on that handy cam or the handheld cam really quick, and then go to camera settings. I'm going to jump back here
Well,
behind
actually,
Steve.
it looks pretty good on the handheld already.
Okay, that's fine.
So if you could tilt it up a little, that'd
Yeah,
be
I'll
great.
use it as a handheld when it's time. Okay, here we just do that too. It's, yeah, we purposefully put some disgusting LEDs in here. Some of the really bad LED or ugly looking colored LEDs we have are also very cheap, crummy LEDs. So they will show their true colors shortly.
There we go.
There we go.
Oh.
So this is the GI
Trigger
Power
warning for
Saver.
epileptics.
Is it really bad? It's not that bad.
The GI Power Saver has kicked in at 2 minutes now. It normally defaults to 15. And it's on a setting that is one step above what it defaults to, which a lot of the LEDs react very poorly to. If you have LEDs in your GI and you notice that they're flickering, not as bad as this, but you can see it, turn off your power saver, turn off the allow dim illumination adjustments, and life will be better.
Yes. The LED, I saw someone talking about the LED OCD board in the chat above. And the LED OCD board does something completely different than this. The LED OCD board is going to make the feature lamps behave more like an incandescent lamp and give it that...
If you're using LEDs.
If you're using LEDs. It will make the LED act more like an incandescent and give it a very slight burn on time and a very slight burn out time instead of a quick switched on off like an LED does. And that is kind of what we're seeing here. TJ, can you kind of explain why the LEDs do this and why you can't see it on the incandescent bulbs on the left?
So the incandescent bulbs are an actual filament that warms up and cools down, similar to what Kyle was just saying about the LED OCD board. It's pulsing the light quick enough that your eye does not see it. The LEDs have a very sharp reaction time, and they react very poorly in this case.
So if those cheaper LEDs up there that are blinking had resistors in them,
Resistors might help.
Well, I think that's the idea behind like a non-ghosting bulb.
right?
So a non-ghosting bulb would be used a lot of times in, it depends on the game, but a non-ghosting bulb has more resistance in line with the diode, which will keep it from doing that. It will not notice those very quick fluctuations in juice, which is why these things are flickering so bad.
The non-ghosting bulbs are really good for the lamp matrix.
Yeah.
They're kind of, I'm not going to say a waste of money, but they are unnecessary against regular
Standard bulb.
LEDs, assuming good quality on both.
A non-ghosting bulb probably would make this not happen, but it also is like 3 seconds of going in the menu and turning GI Power Saver off, and you will save a lot of money by not needing to just load your game up with non-ghosting bulbs. Generally, they're 25 cents or more expensive
Additional.
per LED, which generally runs around $1. So, yeah.
A note about the ghosting versus non-ghosting. While I've never used the LED OCD board, I'm told that you want to use regular ghosting LEDs with that board, because the non-ghosting ones don't play nice with how the board drives them.
Yeah, I don't know how the board works, but yeah, you do need to use standard ghosting bulbs in those things because the higher amount of resistance in
Yeah, check out those slingshot lights. Ouch.
yeah, the higher resistance in the non-ghosting bulbs will screw with the semi-precise drive that those LED OCD boards go. A lot of people don't care or would notice a difference, but it does play out. It's really neat to see two games that are exactly the same next to each other, and one with an LED set and the other one with like standard incandescent bulbs. And it's really beautiful to watch the light shows and see how much more like gentle and sweeping that the standard, right? The programmers programmed the light shows in these games to go with the technology that came in them, and the LED light shows just look a lot different than watching the way that they would use the glow-on, glow-off effect of the bulbs. I don't know. I think I will get an LED OCD board for my Twilight Zone. I think that would actually be a fun thing to install and show, and the light show with it is.
So if you're going to do incandescents, are you a 44 or a 47 guy?
44.
44s?
Because most of the time my games are on for 1 hour a week in my house. And I want it to be
in the games you
bright.
operate, you do LEDs in.
In the games I operate, I put LEDs in. Or if I'm, some of my EMs, I do have some LEDs in, but in very strategic spots. To keep certain spots of the game bright, and then I'll run, I don't know. It doesn't really bother me, right? Because the amount of time even that these games are going to be on now, it's not anything like back in the day when they were on from like 8 till 2 in the morning, right?
Right.
So
I'm going to hit a flipper button on Indy, which will end its power saver mode for the game over
tilt
mode.
it down just a teeny bit towards the slingshots, a little more. That's probably better. Can you see it better, Steve?
Yeah, no, they look great now. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's without the power saver running. I'll come back and show you the 7 or 8.
Cool. Thanks for the link, Nolan.
Yeah, can you put the camera, the green cam back on before TJ does this, just to show people, if they tuned in for this part, what to watch for? Yeah, that's cool, Nolan. I'll take a look at that too.
So going into general illumination test, you can actually see that on level 1, they're really flickery.
Oh, you could put the handheld in the top right also,
Just
Steve.
did, man. On top of
I'm going to stop talking now.
No, I appreciate the advice. I do.
So is that
I'm
visible
not used to doing this, so.
on the handheld? Can you see the backlash?
Yeah,
Yes.
yep.
So on the left over here, we've got incandescents. On the right, we have various LEDs. These are some of the higher end LEDs that are not even responding to this level 1. Level 2, we get a little bit more brightness. This, I don't know if you can see, this far left side is completely out, so we're just going to ignore those. Level 3, you can actually see the incandescents. You can see them pulsing, and the LEDs are getting better or worse depending on which ones you follow. Brightness number 5, this is the factory adjustment for the power saver when it enables. So you can see some of these, the warm whites up here are showing some more flicker, whereas these lower quality ones are quite happy at that voltage or pulse rate. 6 is what we were at before.
No, those are really
and that gave us this horribleness down here with a different brand that's not up in the head. 7 is almost completely bright, and 8 is all the way.
Dang, that's actually pretty eye-opening. That's kind of neat to see all those different LEDs in there at once to see the way that they do.
Variation between product, yeah.
Yeah, not all LEDs are created equal, and all of them are responding very different, whether they are the higher end of the spectrum or a cheaper version. But that is what you run into. But see, the neat thing is like some of these super dim bulbs. Like this is the stuff that the programmers are able to use when they're programming these light shows to create these sweeps, and it's incredible.
An example on Johnny Mnemonic, it will actually dim the GI on the playfield to a really dim level while the ball is in the glove and you're placing it in the matrix.
There you go. To help focus your light. The things that they were able to, or to help focus
It's
your
a dramatic
eyes.
effect.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the choreography.
It's super cool, and that's the neat thing. That's like, those are the little differences that really made Williams a step above everyone else when it came to the choreography, right? It's hard to put that into a spreadsheet and replicate it over and over. That is pretty neat.
More of the GI test. You can test individual strings. Let's find something. There we go. So this is one string of GI, and you can see down at the bottom it's the white, green, and green wires on the GI connectors. If you need more information, there you can hit the start button. We'll bring up the wire colors, and you can step through these with the plus and minus to go back to find further information, but it tells you the playfield connector pins, J120 pins 5 and 10. The backbox connectors, J121. Those two connectors are interchangeable.
Right on, Daniel. I agree.
Tells you which fuse number. Fuse 107 is a 5 amp slow blow.
So it tells you everywhere to look in case you don't have the manual or know where to look for it, right?
And then driver Q16 is one of the giant heatsink triacs, which almost never ever fail.
Was that your Tom 808? Said he had his machine just rebooted during gameplay. What could cause that on a Theater of Magic?
That would be low 5 volts. That system has a circuit that watches the 5 volts on the CPU. If it drops below a certain threshold, it will initiate a reset, which was done to prevent coils from locking on. There's a couple different ways of fixing it. People typically say, oh, bridge rectifiers in caps. If you don't know what you're doing, you can cause more damage. A lot of the traces on the power driver boards are very fragile. They will go through from one side to the other in the hole that the component goes through. So if you're very careless or inexperienced in removing components, you can cause a lot of damage, and while you're making contact on the top side of the board, you now no longer have a way through to the bottom side for it to continue to something else.
And it's especially hard on those boards with the capacitors themselves, because they're a snap style capacitor. So instead of having like straight leads that go through, they have those little prongs, and right? Am I wrong?
Yeah.
So it's very.
You're correct. You're not wrong.
I am. Thank you. It is. It is very easy to just be like, oh, it's all the solder's gone now, and you rip it, and that's what rips that area TJ's talking about. Is that there's a bit of metal in there. It's called the fillet, and the fillet helps the solder go through the via, which is the through hole, from one side to the other. Maybe a via is only technically where a component isn't. I don't know, but either way.
Either way, you can cause damage without realizing that you're doing it. You put your board back in, and now it works even less than it did before, because in the process of removing a bridge rectifier, you have removed the fillet that goes with it.
And half of the circuit downstream or upstream is now not working. So, like, long story short, that is a very complicated, but also a very well documented issue with WPC games. And there is a very good guide on how to flow it through. I do need to respond to your email. I've read it. I really wish I could just drop everything and get on a plane and go to Hawaii and fix all of your games right now.
That would both, buddy.
That would make me feel very good. But I will link you to some good places to start like testing through all that.
Is PinWiki a good?
Yeah, PinWiki has a very well written. I think Chris Heibler wrote all of that stuff on it. Well, a lot of it, and that guy is incredibly smart. But it's you don't just everyone like TJ says you start capacitors and bridge rectifiers. Generally, it's not that, but it can be. But there's a flow chart where you start right exactly from where the juice starts and right where it ends, and you will find your problem somewhere in there. It is complicated though.
Well, 808 Sue says, Kyle, no sweat, buddy. We're never in a hurry. Just come out whenever you're ready.
Am I allowed to mention the small thing?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So Marco website has, for I believe $50, a small power adapter board that will fix most reset issues. It installs very quickly. I've actually done it blindfolded. We'll turn this off, and maybe you can switch back to this camera.
I think Steve's linking the product because this is usually what he's doing in the chat. He's doing a great job.
To the handheld?
Yeah, the handheld, if you can see up here.
Yep.
Power comes out of the power driver board on this connector, goes into the CPU on this connector. On WPC95, it's actually...
Yeah, here, I'll move this because it's taking up half of the camera too.
Give us a moment.
Oh, I just unplugged the light while I was moving it too.
Trying to get some light on that back box.
Yeah,
Shed some light
go ahead
on
and
the
poke through the whole
subject.
thing. It'd be nice to have to show the whole issue. Is this any better or
Yeah,
no?
no, that's a ton better. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So power comes out of the power driver board here, goes into this connector for the CPU board. This is ground, 12, and 5 volts. The power fix board that Steve, did you link to it?
No.
Oh,
Not yet.
sorry.
So Steve will link to it. Remove this connector. It's a small 2-inch by 2-inch board. Plugs in here. It's keyed, so you can only plug it in one way. And then it will plug in on this connector. So it's literally just goes in between. There's male pins on one end, female pins on the other. Put that all back together, and you should have a working game. If you have deeper power issues or a ton of mods that are using the 12-volt supply, you may continue to have issues, since what this does is it takes 12 volts, which there's a little bit of extra headroom to begin with, and makes fresh 5 volts at the CPU board just for the CPU.
And the reason, can you explain like why the computer resets, like the whole game isn't wigging out?
So the computer resets to basically shut everything down when the power dips, which is common during multi-ball when you're hitting both flippers. It was first sort of happened a lot on Addams Family, Twilight Zone, and Star Trek, because those had a lot going on during a multi-ball and a lot more power draw. I lost my train of thought.
It's okay. I'll pick it up.
We'll pick it up at the next station.
Yeah,
That's cool.
and so in this, the 5 volts does run to almost every other circuit board here that has a CMOS chip. So
you get 5 volts out here, 5 and 12 on 3 of these 4 connectors down here that will go to the playfield for optos, drop targets, drop target optos, I guess, as well as the other boards in the head. There's one of the 4 connectors is a 3-pin connector, and that's GI for your coin door.
Very important. The most important of all connectors. No. But the
You got to see where to put the quarters in.
That's right. No, it is. That's one of the most important things. I love seeing when people post pictures of games like totally shopped, 100%, and like the coin door lights aren't on. You're just like, huh, okay. I can see where else you're cutting corners here too.
Did you want to finish your thought, and I can just go around the connectors and what they do?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm just saying is that I think we've talked about it a couple times on the show, but you've got 5 volts that originates here. It runs things here, and it runs things here, 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 and under here. And it's a very important voltage, as like TJ said, is if the computer cannot control what's going on, if the conductor cannot wave his wand, the whole game can do all sorts of weird stuff, and it can damage things. So it is set to save itself. It's annoying now because you don't get to play pinball anymore, but the computer's trying to save itself from locking up or doing something weird. So it's just an incredibly interesting, smart circuit that just takes in, again, the 12 volts here, turns it into its own dedicated 5 that only runs this. So I see people argue about it all the time, like, it's not a permanent fix. It is a permanent fix, blah, 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 blah.
As an operator, I like them because I'm not spending half an hour taking a board out to replace components that may or may not be the problem and put it back in. Sometimes it's just unplugging the connectors, plug them back in, will be enough to get it by for a little bit longer. You'll think you got it fixed, and then 2 weeks later, it'll come back. This is a quick fix. It installs in a couple minutes. Like, it installs in 20 seconds once you have the head open.
Yeah, it's super easy, and it gives you the opportunity to fix it correctly when you have time. If someone says, you know, if you get a call saying my game is resetting, the difference between being able to, you know, get some, I don't know, it helps a lot on a service call. It helps a lot at home. It allows you to get your game playing so you can enjoy your party that you have planned this weekend and then send the board off for repair and do the other repairs, track down the issue. I mean, I've had one in my Twilight Zone for a long time now, and I have no problems with it. I will fix it correctly, but, you know, I don't know.
Now you can play it in the meantime.
But now I can play it in the meantime until I feel like going through that whole rigmarole.
I've also had some of my customers, my home customers, that have this problem. I can send them a link to Marco to buy it, along with other stuff that they need
it's an easy install. So
need or don't need to reach the $99 for free shipping with a coupon code.
Which is today, PT Jellybean.
PT Jellybean.
Thanks, Veggie Jellybean, for showing up. We miss you too.
But I can walk them through installing it over the phone and save myself the time of going out there, which my time is valuable lately. I need to save up my time so I can come here.
That's right.
Across the country and hang out for a couple hours.
I think Dark Fiber has a good definition of it. It's a functional patch.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a Band-Aid. You can leave the Band-Aid on for a while. It doesn't hurt to rip it off, but then you can't play pinball unless you fix the actual problem.
And yeah. The root cause repair is usually a PETA. So.
Moving on, we could spend hours going back and forth on this. Some of the connectors on this power driver board, is this in frame well enough?
Yep.
This is GI coming in, goes through fuses. For one side of it, you have the white with stripes. The stripes match the solid wires. So one side of it goes through fuses, one side goes through the triacs. They both come out on these two connectors, which are identical. One goes to the head, the insert panel, and one goes to the playfield. Moving on, there's a bunch of coils for low power and high power coils up to about here.
Can you explain the difference between a low power and a high power coil?
Not easily. High power coils are typically 50 volts and low power is 20, 25, somewhere in there.
Perfect. All we need.
Okay. There are some of these connectors are keyed the same. Let me pull these off. We actually don't have any of them on this game, but for example, J124 has, you probably can't see this, but it's a pin, a key, and 4 pins.
I could hold the camera. Steve, are we like in decent frame if I hold the camera to get a little closer for all this?
You're going to have to bring it down a little. There you go. Looks good.
So we've got...
There's an earthquake.
Sorry.
1 pin, a key, and 3 more pins.
Probably don't need the light.
Okay. That is the same keying as over here, as well as up here and here. So if you're really stretching wires, you can plug them in the wrong place. But these are a little bit too close to here. It's a good idea to label the end of the connector with a Sharpie when you're removing them. You can see this one has a 130 on it. So that goes to J130. Someone has already done this.
Beautiful.
This is 127, which goes here.
If you're undoing this and someone hasn't unlabeled them or you aren't confident, I would just, the biggest pro tip I would give is don't stretch things. And how do things look, right? These wires have been stretched in this way for almost 30 years.
They're in cable clamps. They tend to only want to go one place. I've seen boards where people will mark the top of the connector and the connector with a Sharpie, which works if you're going to put the same board back in the same game.
Yeah.
But the minute that you put it in a different game, the matching Sharpie marks are no longer helpful. Moving over, these are all your solenoid drives. They go basically directly down to the solenoid connectors. This is the switched ground side. The power for the solenoids comes out of here, and there's 5 fuses across the top. 2 of them are for flippers on Funhouse through about Black Rose or Party Zone, T2. that use the non-Fliptronic flippers. 3 solenoid fuses, which usually come out on these 3 wires, and sometimes a flasher wire.
And there's 3 solenoid fuses. Why?
So you have coils 1 through 8, 9 through 16, and 17 through 24.
And this allows you to kind of figure out where the problem is without just blowing up one fuse over and over and over
yes,
and over
Fliptronic,
again.
you heard your name.
So if you have no fuses or no solenoids at all, between 1 and 24, which could also be flashers in test number 5 or solenoids in test number 4. If you have nothing at all, I would check your main solenoid fuse is over here. If this is blown, you probably have a bad bridge rectifier. There's a cheat sheet up here, tells you what the various fuses are, where they're located on the board, so on and so forth.
So now explain why these are the main solenoid fuses, kind of like what the path of juice is, right?
So only one of these is for solenoids, one is for flashers, one is for logic voltage, but this is the AC coming in from the transformer on these connectors, goes through a fuse and then to the bridge. If your bridge rectifier, one of them is shorted, one of the 4 diodes that make up the bridge is shorted, it will likely blow the fuse. So if this fuse is blown, the first thing I will do is pull the board, check the bridges. You can follow the traces either with a meter or visually and see which one it goes to if you don't have a manual. What are you laughing at?
808 asked if anybody wanted candy corn.
Yes,
I'll
even
bring
eat
things
some
back
now.
I'll
to
have
candy.
some. If I had my car with me, I actually still have some from last Halloween.
Oh, God.
It might still be good, even though it's now
It never goes bad.
it's now a
It's like it's candy
glob.
corn on the cob.
Yeah, it's a brick.
Yeah, candy corn on the glob. There you go. So this is power in. Makes other power. Here's your 5-volt regulator, your 12-volt regulator. This cap is starting to leak on a lot of games. So if you don't have 12 volts for your switches, that's a good place to start. Pull the cap off the board, fix the traces, clean it up a bit.
But let's talk about that starting to leak, right?
By starting to leak, I mean that the games are getting to the age where they're starting to leak.
They're getting old.
Yes.
These components are wearing out more. So 5-6 years ago, you might not have ever needed to look at said capacitor, but nowadays they are ending their
Useful life.
yes.
It's not the sort of thing I would go pull boards and replace right now, like preemptively. I would just wait for it to die. Your game will stop working in the 12-volt department, and we can turn this on and get some various LEDs. LED 3 is an indicator of low line voltage. You may see it flicker, you may see it be on. Just ignore it. Well, don't just ignore it, but it's not the end of the world.
Likely.
Don't try to figure it out. But you have test points for 5 volts, 12 volts. Ground is on the back plane. If your board is securely screwed in, that's a good place to measure.
or it's there in the center, right?
Where did that meter go?
There's one in my toolbox if you lift up the bottom pallet.
This
There's
one.
one right over there.
Yeah.
There you go.
Test points are these little nipples sticking up out of the board. I don't know if that's, I'm kind of
Yeah, it's
blocking
kinda
the light.
yeah.
Someone forgot to turn that one off. So
Steve,
So much candy corn hate.
got a meter there. I'm going to take the ground and shove it under the ground strap right there in the corner of the head. So it's underneath that. We're going to take this and poke at 5 volts. Got 4.97. That's pretty good. 12 volts regulated is 11.6. There's 20 volts here, which we have nothing. Well, let's
wrong scale.
set that up a scale.
We are at
We're at 21.
21.8.
If you get nothing on this, your coin door is open, or you have a blown fuse. There's ground just below it. 18 volts is over here for lamps. That's close enough.
So I guess also 20 volts, right? We use 20 volts is normally used for flash lamps,
Yes.
right? So 18 volts runs the lamp matrix. 12 volts is used to run a lot of things. But the one thing that a lack of 12 volts really starts to indicate is you'll notice that with switches not working, no switches work. I guess the game won't boot up either if you are missing 12 volts in the right spot, right?
Right. You can run the computer with 5 volts.
Oh,
and
okay.
it'll.
Because the 12 volts comes into the computer to run the switch matrix. It doesn't
Correct.
need the 12 volts to do anything else.
12 volts unregulated is over here.
Unregulated versus regulated means?
It hasn't gone through the voltage regulator. It's actually a different source. This is 12 volts coming in on this connector. Disconnect that. That light will go out. But we still have, where was it?
12 volts are over under.
It's 12 volts regulated. We should still have that because that's coming in from over here.
What is the reason? Okay, actually, now this is a question because I want to learn. What is that 12 volts used for? What does it get turned into?
I think this is used for optos.
Ah, okay.
I'm not 100% sure. It's in my head. I need to dig for it.
See, these are the things you don't need to remember this stuff because your manual will tell you if you know where to look. So.
Or it's beyond skill level.
Either or. Oh, and the other thing too, ground strap. That's why it's also very, very important to make sure everything is hooked up to these lugs. This is a ground strap that travels throughout the game to ground everything that is attached to
Earth
that.
if you're in the UK.
Earth.
All the way to the
Good
tip of
man.
the power cord.
Yes. Making sure things are grounded or earthed. I like earth.
Yeah,
Okay,
me too.
I'm
Yeah,
changing that.
yeah.
I'm
We're
changing.
missing a couple fuses here. I just noticed that. These are GI fuses. So we've got some darkness in the upper half of the playfield, which is more than just the missing light bulbs.
Yeah, this was, when I got the game, this was like absolutely melted. So, and you can tell that this was done kind of rushed because the harness is all sorts of goofy lengths because I was lazy. But I'm not going to knock points on myself for that. You might, but I won't.
Transistors are here for coils. This is your lamp section. These 3 connectors, the small 0.100, are all the same. You can actually see the traces going from one to the next. What this is 8 lamp rows for the playfield lights. The small one with 1 or 2 wires on it is for, actually this one has 3, is for the cabinet, and then the third one would be for back box insert panel, like Scared Stiff or Junkyard. This is the other side of the lamp matrix. Again, you have playfield and back box insert panel, and there's this tiny one here. Goes to the start button and the launch button. So this combined with this one with the 3 wires gets you your cabinet lights. The 3 wires in this case are start light, launch light, and extra ball button light. And I was working on a Brida Pinbot recently and was caught off guard that this connector was missing because that doesn't have a lighted start button. I went to put the board back in and it's like, I got there and stopped.
Welcome, Dalton. Yes, Turbo Bobby.
Hey,
for
Dalton.
sure.
That has tripped me up a few times working on Bride of Pinbots, being like, why won't this light work? Why isn't it? Oh. Okay.
Continuing around, we have power input to the board, 50 volts, 20 volts, stuff to make 5 and 12. This is usually for motors. These 2 connectors are the same. This is output, 50 volts and 20 volts for flashers and solenoids. There's usually another one up here for insert panel flashers, which has a thin red wire on it. These connectors are either missing completely or not populated or not used on Fliptronic games. So this is for the high voltage flippers with the flipper enable relay for games like Funhouse and T2. The relay turns it on, you have your flipper switches go in, and your flipper power comes back out.
It was never changed until WPC 95 because why go through the money to redesign this board when you already have plenty of them, so just keep using them.
Right. Although they did start to omit this section. These 2 tiny chips on here are opto isolators.
Lane change?
For the lane change, it watches the current go through and translates them to switches for left and right flipper, which go through this ribbon cable back to the CPU.
All pretty fancy. Yeah, I guess I forget that they stopped populating those. I guess there was just a point where it was just like they probably bought 1 million of these relays and 10,000 of them, and once they passed through the 50,000 relays, like, well, you don't need to stuff those anymore. We're not going to rebuy them.
Display power supply. Display power supply section is usually pretty cooked, but still works. If you have a game that has a dead high voltage power supply section, you could change out the board, you could add a piggyback board, or you can just go with a color DMD that uses 12 volts instead of the high voltages.
Or any LED DMD, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, but for WPC, there's really, oh no, I guess there's the German guy, the Pin2 DMD, but I don't think there are very many choices for Williams games for the LED thing never caught on. Not caught on, but
Right.
I know that here at Marco, Nancy was trying to develop an LED dot matrix, and they were just, it's very difficult to get right. It's a very sensitive circuit, and it kept catching interference, so.
Soundboard varies by generation of game. Some are bigger, some are smaller. This is one of the bigger ones. I think this is DCS.
Yeah.
Moving over to the Fliptronic board here in the corner, it either works or it doesn't. If it doesn't work, you probably have a human error that caused it to not work. They generally don't fail on their own, with the exception being Adam's Family, which has the Fliptronic 1 board.
Which is terrible. Tell us why.
The big thing is Adam's Family does not have redundant diodes on the Fliptronic board, so when your diodes on your flipper coils break off, the voltage spikes can take things out.
So when we say redundant diode, right, the diodes exist on the flipper coil. On Fliptronic 2, they also installed the diode, another set of diodes on the board. Which is a redundant diode, right? You can put a bazillion diodes in line as long as they're all facing the same way. Well, okay. No, there's an electronic engineer saying, the voltage drop across 1 in 4,007, whatever.
The important thing is if
engineers talk?
Yes. The important thing is that if you have an Adams Family and you plan to operate it or put it on free play, do not use a Fliptronic 1 board. Have you been out to Cloudflare yet to fix the Adams Family?
no,
Can you add redundant diodes to that board?
I'm not sure.
I don't think so, but I'm pretty sure it's not that difficult to swap the Fliptronic 2 into the Adams Family. It's documented, and if you plan on owning that game and putting it on location, it's a very, 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 very good idea to do so.
Kyle talked about a lot of reasons you could have a Gimpy plunger in our last episode. You might want to go back and check that out.
Oh, yeah.
This is the connector for the knocker that is missing up here.
People take them out for all sorts of reasons. This game was in a motorcycle club, so I can imagine people got angry at it and they ripped it out.
The knocker bracket is also the same as a kickback bracket on mini games. Shares the same or similar components with that. We'll leave it at that. Coming around to the CPU, you got some ribbon cables. Some of these jump from board to board. We'll turn this off. With ribbon cables, it is possible to put them off by a row. You can see that we've still got a row of pins here that's not included in the ribbon cable.
Does that come through, Steve?
Yes. Yep, we can see those pins on the outside.
So you want to make sure that you get both sets of pins. We've got 2 rows of pins, places for them to go when you put it on. As a rule of thumb, I will feel the underside of the connector after I put it on, especially in the dark, just to make sure that I don't have pins sticking out on the underside.
Nolan, Kyle probably thinks that's silly. I don't.
What?
I know that he said he replaces his ribbon cables every time he gets a new game. Is that silly?
I replace them when they stop working.
Right.
If you're having phantom issues,
but because they're only rated for so many ons and offs.
Right.
Right. So when you put new ones in, you know how many ons
Yeah.
and offs you
No, I don't think that's silly. I just, it's each their own.
Right.
if you have vertical lines on your display, I would replace ribbon cables if reseating them hasn't helped. If you, a common, not so common, but since I get a lot of tech support calls, it's common for me to hear about it, is where you'll get solenoid 3 is missing, will not fire in test, and solenoid 11 is also missing because that's a set of 8. So there's sets of 8, and then there's a selector bit. But the line for data bit number 3 for solenoids in this connector is flaky. You can troubleshoot that on this connector only by flipping it upside down on both ends.
If the
And
position
if your
changes.
if your solenoid number 3 and 11 now work, then that's where your problem was. So
Great advice. Yeah.
some games actually hide this a lot worse, in a worse way. I seem to remember Creature from the Black Lagoon had one solenoid that wasn't working, but it didn't have something in its +8 or +16. So it was very hard to diagnose.
With swapping the ribbon cable around.
Keeping in mind that some of these, the 1 through 24, may also be disguised as flashers. So we're going to flip this back around. Typically with ribbon cables, you have a mark. This has a red line. If you get a cable that doesn't have anything on it, you could draw a line on it with Sharpie. But there's an indicator for pin 1 at one end of the connector, and pin 1 and 2 are labeled on this one. You can also see 33, 34. You know that the other end is pin 1. Put this on here.
We
Feel
do
the
that kind of
underside.
like a key, so you know that you're not flipping or twisting your ribbon cables as you're trying to connect pin 1 from here all the way to pin 1 over here, right? So that helps us as a visual aid when we try to do these things.
Another trick on WPC is this ribbon cable going to the display. Pin 1 is typically on the left on both of them. Not always, but typically. And then down at the bottom of the CPU, you've got switches. White and green make up your playfield switch matrix. The white and green together goes to your cabinet. There's unused connectors directly above these, are the same as the one below them. Again, if you had something like Scared Stiff that has the spider wheel with the opto on the wheel motor,
that all reports up to the insert.
you would need some additional switches there. This one that's got the mixed goes to the cabinet for things like launch, start, buy extra ball, playfield tilt, or not playfield, but regular tilt and slam tilt. And then the connector with the orange switches is for coin switches and diagnostic buttons.
Which would be referred to as a dedicated switch in your
Yes.
switch matrix, right? So they have their own
They tie
column.
to ground. So you
Yeah,
wind up
okay.
with
That's
all
right.
the orange ones are across the left of your switch matrix.
And Daniel reminds us that if you're putting your cables on right, the red line should be on pin 1.
Yes.
Yes, it is important. So you just keep those standards because it helps when you're troubleshooting with someone who really goes by the books.
Something else I've been doing as I bring games through the shop is tightening these
We've
7/16 nuts.
They're
Okay.
all loose. Here, let's go grab the 7/16" wrench. It's probably in, every single one of these things is loose.
Did you install an external battery holder on that guy?
No, this is factory. Well, that's not factory, but this is a WPC. This would be called the security computer.
Okay.
Yes, security chip is there. They mounted it. They mounted the batteries on this extra board. Somebody has replaced the holder with an enclosed holder with a switch. I miss Radio Shack.
I used to work there.
And those will still leak. So it's better to install an NVRAM. Although if your soldering skills aren't great, again, you can cause more damage than you're actually fixing.
Look how loose those are. They're all loose. Go look at every single WPC game you have and tighten all of those bolts, and you'll be happy because now things are tighter.
And replace
Always
the
be
two that are
tightening.
missing.
They're missing?
Well, usually you'll
Really
get a
don't
game
last
that's
a while.
missing a flange nut because it's loosened up.
Oh yeah, it's loosened up and fallen to the bottom of the cabinet, and someone vacuumed it up 10 years ago. This computer, the WPC security computer, I mean, by the time these games came out, Williams knew. I mean, you were having lots of people having battery leakage issues.
Poor Zap. He's doing what I think is one of the worst pinball jobs ever.
Pop bumpers?
No, repinning System 1 edge connectors.
We won't talk about that.
Yeah, we don't talk about those games here. I'm looking at you, Buck Rogers. Anyways, so this was, I think, Williams' attempt to lessen the damage of corroding, leaky batteries, while still making it a form factor fit package, right? This is still on the CPU. It's not separate. It's all comes as one package. WPC 95 was.
We went over tools last time I was here. This is all in my pocket.
I wish I had pockets like those.
Is that an extendable nut driver in your pocket?
Yes, it is.
Are you just happy to see me? Where were the batteries on WPC 95?
Back up at the top where they can drip
Yeah.
over everything.
So then Williams definitely didn't learn their lesson when they went to their next iteration of the
I think the
computer.
person that learned their lesson may not have been there anymore.
Yeah, the person that learned that lesson was vindictive and told the new engineer to put it back at the top so the batteries will not leak near the wood or something.
With the extension, I can actually reach the far side head bolts.
It's a thing of beauty. Yep. So there's two things. The guy that TJ's working for now and the person that taught me almost everything, he told me there's two things that a game isn't shopped unless these things were done. A game isn't shopped unless all those bolts are tight, unless the coin door lights work, all the cabinet lights work, and if these aren't vacuumed
Blow
out.
those out, yes.
If these are not vacuumed out, your game is not shopped, and it's not worth as much as someone's trying to charge you for. Those are the things I look for now, because I am strange. But yeah, otherwise this game is actually in pretty okay shape. I mean, other than not being able to play it, right? But we have sound, we have motor control, flasher control, solenoids work. I think we tested all of them before I ripped it apart. We had some GI nightmares that have seemingly been fixed, but I haven't repopulated with fuses. We do have a outgassing or bad dot matrix display. Actually, I can't say that. I haven't checked voltages, but I'm going to kind of skip that step. I think the dot matrix is going bad.
I will say that I expect this to be put back together by the time I come back and visit again.
Challenge accepted. I think the customer
I'll
also...
see you in 2 weeks then.
Yeah, oh, God. I think the customer also expects it to be done very quickly as well, so... Whew. What time is it? Do we blabble?
4:38.
Wow, we blabbled a lot.
Yeah, we've got about 20 minutes left. Yeah.
You didn't even have to clean ramps because you found out they're available.
I cleaned them anyways. Well, just in case. I might put it back together with the old ramps and then put the new ramps in once they're done. But should we want to put the main cameras on? Maybe we could do some chit-chat?
You want to just chill on the blue cam, or
Yeah.
sound good?
Steve, would you like a carbonated grain beverage? Is Colin still here?
Yeah, Colin's still here. I don't. Let's wait. Let's wait a little bit.
We don't need that right now. Let's chit-chat.
We got some wicked weed.
Oh,
It's a freak of nature.
I was thinking about a Yingling just
in
because
the
it's almost
fridge
like
right
water.
now.
But
I don't know if you've had that, Colin, but it's one of my new faves.
So looking over to our left, there's Kings of Steel, and there's Kings of Steel. And I'm wondering what the plural of that is.
the Kings.
The Kings of Steel. There we go. That works. I'll
Yeah.
accept that.
That one's got that back glass on the one on the right is a bit. I don't know if mine is a bit faded or the crappy LEDs in the back are making it look different, but it just looks
Colin
so.
and Zap both want a barley pop.
Yeah, barley carbonated grain beverage. Mine. See, look at the colors in
it's,
mine, and
it's
look at the
called,
colors in the one on the
Freak
right.
of Nature by Wicked Weed Brewery up in Asheville, North Carolina.
I don't know.
I'm doing stuff.
Do it. Wow.
Oh, grapefruit mead.
Angry. That sounds good.
Yeah, that
Here,
sounds
you
really
get to hold
good.
this.
Hey, TJ wants to use small cam now. He's found more.
More things to tighten. The playfield pivot assembly is frequently loose, which consists of these bolts here.
Oh, so we're going back to hand cam.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Tell me when you're ready.
Yep, we're good.
These bolts here frequently get loose. They'll fall out. The bolt that goes through the side of the cabinet will get loose. You'll get a playfield that doesn't slide out easily.
Maybe I'll send you some, Colin.
You can take a flat screwdriver, or in this case, Leatherman file, and get that tightened. That's a lot better. Take some of the pressure off of it while you're doing it. And then get the other side. These are greasy. So if you're wearing white while working on pinball machine, you shouldn't be doing that to begin with.
Yeah, I think I put a little grease on the rails on this one. They were seized shut.
So that's better. A lot of time these are Mangled on the older games like Fishtails, the first generation to use them. You can pull out the screws along here, take it out on a workbench with a vise or something where you can hammer at it. Straighten it back out. It should be more C-shaped. You shouldn't have it bent open like a giant jaw.
Some of them are awful. And why does that happen?
People don't know how to release the playfield, or they raise the playfield the wrong way.
They're using he-person strength and.
I don't think I've bent them on my own, so I don't know how it happens naturally in the wild, but.
But it happens so often. I have so many customers' games, and it always seems to be a getaway for me. It's always getaway.
Getaway,
has
Fishtails. Those were the early ones that used it. And then these springs come off. I don't know where they go, but they're never in the bottom of the game. They will come off bottom first. Usually, I'm not going to take that off, but Marco has those springs. If you have a bunch of this generation of game, it's good to have a couple extra.
Just in case.
You're missing a diode on here, but because it's Fliptronic 2, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, hey, bidiode. I think I will put that on, though, because we want redundant diodes so we don't blow things up. What else is on with this? I know I sent off this board here for reproduction. So soon we will have new Indy500 LED opto boards. I think the one caveat of this board is you will have to you will have to affix it. So you will need to drill out your old bracket here and attach it using some screws, but that should not be too hard. Or I could work on trying to get this piece remade as well. But
we got a Twilight Zone question for you,
Okay.
Kyle. Wildman 9999
oh, that guy.
needs to replace one of the plastics in front of the mini playfield. It looks like it's riveted.
Yeah, they're
I
always
think I know which one
exploded.
he's talking about.
Yeah.
How do I remove that one and reattach the new one?
You can drill out the rivets very carefully using a small drill bit and go up in size as needed. But you basically want to destroy the old rivet from the side that's not facing you.
From the non-head side?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think to get that off, you have to remove the
Tube side.
you have to remove the mini playfield to get that bracket, don't you?
I think so, because there's nuts on the underside of the posts.
Yeah. So
It's a project.
It is a project. Taking off the mini playfield on that game is not fun, but it's also not that hard. Getting it back together is the most difficult bit of making sure it's level, but it's really not that hard. I have seen people drill them out from the front, and I definitely don't recommend that, but possible.
Come up here. This spring on a diverter assembly is 10-389. It's commonly broken at the top end. You'll get a diverter that will kind of limp flop open. When this pulls in, there's nothing to pull the diverter other than gravity. You can bend another end onto it. This one's in really good shape. But if you have a bunch of pinballs of this vintage, you should have extra of the 10-389 springs. You could find a link for them.
Yeah, we also, I think we sell the whole assembly too. There's two different styles of this. Like one is one length and the other is another length, but I actually pound those together in the office. So you could buy the whole assembly, but if you're handy and you have a set of roll pin punches and some determination, you can save a lot of money by just buying those little springs.
If you get the short plunger and you put it in a game that uses a flipper coil size, it will twitch, but it won't actually hold open. So my Scared Stiff, I inadvertently put a new shorter plunger in place of the old plunger that I took out. I didn't compare them. I had a weird issue.
Oh, okay. That's
so
interesting.
the two plunger sizes is important, but you could just replace the small spring.
Get roll pin punches. That is the lesson of the day. And an anvil, or a vise, sorry.
Yes.
It's funny how bare this.
Just get a full shop. You'll be good. It'll be really expensive, and like the rent will kill you, but
it'll be fun.
Find a friend with a shop. Maybe that works.
Yeah, I think other than that, we just need to. I just need to put the dang thing back together and see what doesn't work.
Other spares you should have are the opto interrupter pieces.
We've talked about those guys. And opto boards.
Yes.
Just carry some extras because you could take the old ones off and rebuild them and then swap new ones in and do it at your leisure.
The opto interrupters are a couple bucks a piece, and Steve is smiling over there.
It's just the chat's going nuts.
But when they break, you can't glue them back together. There's a fair amount of spring tension inherent in it that you're not going to get if you glue it back together. It's not going to last. And it will break on a Friday night.
Hey, D-Wisp, shoot Kyle an email about that. We'll get you taken care of. So.
Uh-oh. What happened?
He said he bought a plunger for turtles. I'm guessing a shooter rod. And he said it was not the right size. And we had it listed as working with turtles. So we need to look into that and see what's up.
Was it the red one? It's supposed to be a red one.
For Data East turtles?
I think we had some that didn't have the red knob also, but yes, let me look into that. I think this isn't an original, but we do have, I think we do have reproduction Data East knob looking ones. Look at that coin door, that's gross. Anyways, yeah, let me know. Thanks for reporting me your problems. I appreciate that.
Everybody's trying to decide whether I look more like Tom Green or Lemmy.
Lemmy.
But I've quit shaving the middle, so I don't really feel Lemmy anymore.
But you still look like Lemmy, but that doesn't shave the middle. I'm just saying.
Oh, goodness.
Do I need to jump in the chat now since I can't spend the last 5 minutes staring at the chat like I normally do?
We're just all going to sit here and watch the chat for 5 minutes.
Yep, we're just going to stare at the chat.
But make sure the camera's not staring at my arms, please.
The camera is staring at your arms.
That's weird.
Well, you don't have any other cameras to...
Let's stare on that one.
Oh, yeah, right.
Oh, man. I'm going to try to stream next week, maybe fix a game. I have a lot of work I want to do on my Twilight Zone, but since I don't want to bring it here, I might have to do it all on Saturdays. So
It is a really heavy game.
I've moved your Twilight Zone before.
I know. That's what Emoto was like.
Yeah, why don't you want people to get tickets to the gun show, man?
I don't have any guns.
They're like little Berettas. They're cool.
Like pea shooters. Emoto's like, just bring your Twilight Zone to the studio. I'm like, okay, you can move it. Like, that's fine. I don't want to. Gun show.
And you have a lot of work to do on bow and arrow as well, so you don't have time for TZ right now.
Did I show you what bow and arrow looks like? I haven't even opened it up all the way, but what I've seen, it's horrifying. But I am excited to work on it at some point. Any tips on repairing mangled art blades?
Buy the stern ones.
Yeah, the stern ones are very, 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 very tough. I don't think that there's much you can do to repair like some actually mangled art blades, unfortunately.
I found the non-stern art blades, you get one shot at getting them on correctly. If you try to peel it off, then the sticker will stretch. The stern ones are made of what they would use on arcade game control panel overlays. It's a much thicker material that's still thin.
Yeah.
And you get a couple shots of putting it on without it stretching. Once you get it all smoothed down, it actually stays.
I like those. They are good. And I did see someone say felt tape. Yeah, putting a little felt tape on the sides of playfields, that's definitely a good way to keep them from scratching. Even when games do have art blades, I forget that they're there, and I will just rip up the playfield because for 10 years, pinball didn't have art blades, and I don't think about it.
I would also like to propagate calling it wallpaper.
Yes, I like calling it wallpaper. Now, I called it wallpaper in front of Tim Sexton and Steve Ritchie, and they both got grumpy. They reminded me that they're called art blades. Now,
it's wallpaper.
It's wallpaper.
I put wallpaper on my Iron Maiden. I'm okay saying that.
It is wallpaper for your pinball machine.
Art blade does not make me think of inside pinball machine art.
No, it's pinball wallpaper.
Yeah, I mean wallpaper does. Pinball wallpaper makes me think of inside cabinet art.
It's hilarious and amazing.
Got a question from Nolan for you.
You read it. You read it.
Opto-cab switches or leaf?
I will answer first, and I'm going to say leaf switches.
I've converted some of my games to leaf switches just because I like the way they feel. You can adjust the tension a fair amount more precisely, and there's this weird correlation between flipper button tension and perceived flipper strength. If you have a really It's like a weak handshake. And Chris has given you the weak handshake, I'm sure.
Yes. Oh yes.
He gave it to me last week when we were talking about this, and it's just it really messes with your mind.
No, it does. You're not wrong, and I think the opto switch is cool innovation, and I think Williams definitely did the right thing. But I also think that there's like, engineers are great at unnecessarily overcomplicating things that are very simple. And I think like flippers that do not have wear, like grounding things, like in big arcs, like they don't need to be over. You can use a leaf switch, it's fine. Stern does it now, and I love it, right?
If you're going to use leaf switches on your cabinets, get the correct ones. Don't put the high voltage leaf switch for Funhouse on your Champion pub, because it's expecting a lower voltage switch contact that just works better when you use correct ones.
When you convert?
I use low voltage ones on games that I'm just doing a digital signal.
Like do you use like the Stern ones that use the little teeny like contacts that meet like an X?
Sometimes.
Okay.
The Palini.
Switches?
It's also a question of, are you replacing the original one? On a Stern game, you would replace it with hopefully the original switch so that you don't have to get longer or shorter screws to go through the switch stack, but not the cabinet.
What do you think about Data East using micro switches?
I thought that was horrible.
Yeah, that's weird. You don't
It's
get
the wrong feel. It's got some click, and micro switches in a dust-filled environment and get dirty.
Yeah.
Well, but again, I think the innovation was in the right spot. I just think it's like sometimes you can reinvent the wheel and like you'll have great results and you're a hero, and sometimes you'll reinvent the wheel and be like, why the hell do people do this? And that's the latter, right? It's like seemingly it makes sense, but I don't think running 50 volts through a teeny little leaf switch contact is a good idea. Like Simpsons still has the leaf switches installed for the flipper buttons, and
You mean
The micro switches?
the micro switches.
Right.
Yeah.
When I'm done with that, I will probably get rid of those. Hey, we could do that on PinTech when we decide to actually work on that game.
Excellent. Yeah, that sounds like a good show.
Yeah, we got Data East Simpsons we will finish, but this needs to be finished. Well, a semblance of finished first. Well, we'll figure out where the ramps are from Mr. Rampomatic. But
Going back to the flipper cabinet optos for Williams, and as far as flipper strength, Marco has the spring steel add-on piece that you can add to give your buttons a little bit more springness to them. On some of the, I think it's the white interrupters, some of them needed that.
oh yeah.
Just to get the opto all the way blocking. It's a mess, but I like the stronger tension on buttons.
It just is nicer, and I get you kind of need them, those stronger pushback too when you're using the micro switch.
So is there any truth to the black interrupters working better
I believe they
than
do.
the white interrupters?
There's something in the
I like the
plastic.
black ones better. It feels like I'm always replacing the white ones.
They're springier. It's just springier plastic.
You don't think it has anything to do with the light being able to pass through the
No.
white any?
Well, there is that weird thing where, like, like when you bring it down to like, remember what we were talking to about what's that one guy that chimes in with his Twilight Zone flipper problems all the time. It ended up being the opto boards.
Right.
There is like, on paper it doesn't make sense that a dirty-ish opto would work sometime or like would give a weak flipper. But it does. In practice, it totally does.
It is rapid firing the flipper input and causing it to turn off the coil and fire the primary coil repeatedly, which heats up the flipper coil quicker also.
You will.
Makes
That is
sense.
one way the Fliptronic system will cook itself. With
I've also had,
If you have 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Okay.
Steve wants to go.
I'm good.
No,
I'm
I'm just.
good.
He's trying to keep me in touch. We could talk forever.
Quick note with weak flippers and rapid fire switch inputs on flipper buttons is I've seen some of the P-Rock games that really behave poorly when that is a condition. So if you have a game that's running P-Rock and you have weak flippers, I would check your flipper switches to make sure that you get movement on both blades when you push the button, and that you're getting a good clean contact. Clean it up with a non-glossy business card or a folded dollar bill pinched between and pull it out a couple times.
And anything that's running a P-Rock, just for people who want to know, would be the P3 system games or every spooky game except for
I think so. And Big Lebowski.
Sense? Big Lebowski.
Not bashing the product, just identifying an issue and how to fix it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because we know how to fix these issues that have stuff that's been around forever, and now we've got a new system that is different but similar, and we have to learn how to fix that too.
So who should we raid? I haven't even looked at Twitch to.
Oh yeah, open Twitch and see
what's
who's on.
going
I think we said we were going to. We need to raid Manu if he's online. But I think Manu's been streaming later lately, so it's beer o'clock.
So how do I do this? I've never done this.
So open Twitch and see who's streaming first. I'm signed into the Marco Pinball Twitch on my laptop.
Before we raid, I would give a shout out to the Fantastic Plastics on Twitch. It is a Devo-inspired cover band. They are pretty awesome, and they stream on Friday nights and I think one other night during the week.
That's awesome.
My wife is totally in love with them, and they're cool people. So,
like
Fantastic Plastics, the Fantastic Plastics.
One word?
I believe so.
Okay. Fliptronic says just go for 3 more hours when I play Indy. Yes. Okay. Stream for 3 more hours.
I'm gonna have to get a different chair.
I'll try to see if I can jump on in 3 hours. I'd like to see you guys. I'm sad.
We also need a bathroom break and maybe some more beverage.
And so it looks like the only.
Thanks, Nolan.
Let's see, Laserlos. Got Laserlos and Kennebunk 5.
Oh, Ken is streaming? Well, Ken is doing some competitive stuff that's not going to take too long.
Right.
As much as I do want to go stream Ken, raid him now, I think we should jump on for Laserlos. Why not?
So,
hey, Carrie.
But I clicked them.
Also, Kyle will be taking up sponsorship to get me out here sooner.
Yeah.
If you're enjoying me being on the show.
What's my next step now?
Yes, we need to get TJ out here all the time. So, Emoto, spend the marketing budget. I know you're listening.
Do it.
Okay, so go into the chat on Restream.
Okay, on Restream.
So you can minimize that.
So before we leave, I want to say thanks for having me on. I've enjoyed being a part of the show twice in 2 months.
Yes, we love having TJ here. It's great. And it was fun because this was sprung on us like what? You were like, hey,
a couple
I'm going to
days
be there
ago.
next week. You want to do that? Yes.
No, it was awesome having you here, TJ.
So go back down to Restream. Just minimize the whole window. Sorry. Go to like the actual, not Chrome, Restream. Okay. So in there, type in /raid. And then space, and then the name of the channel. Hey, thanks everyone for joining. Thanks for listening to us. I'm glad TJ was here to teach us. I learned many things.
A note for Zap Brannigan with the LEDs behind flipper buttons is make sure that they don't short on the, if you have high voltage flippers or on things like the auto launch. You want to make sure that they're out of the way enough.
All right, guys, thanks so much, man.
What did Carrie say? Didn't it work?
We'll see you soon.
Working? Bye. Come on, who works? Have a good weekend. Thank you.
Later, guys.
And then hit raid now. Bam, and then you could hit the splash screen if you want to be cool like Emoto. And don't even worry about it, just.
Even they're like, yeah, we've done this 1,000 times. What up? Hell yeah. Welcome, Marco. Appreciate the raid. Welcome, slammers and or jammers. Hopefully your stream went well. It'd be really great if I could just get the ball. On the edge of losing this. I'm currently in my second Ringmaster battle of this game. No idea what my score is, but